The desert planet of Xylos, 7 shimmered under twin suns, its ochre sand stretching endlessly across the horizon. Corporal Marcus Hale trudged through the alien landscape, his boots sinking slightly into the fine powder with each step. The mission had been straightforward: investigate unusual energy readings emanating from this remote sector. What he hadn't expected was to become completely separated from his unit during a sudden sandstorm that had swept across the terrain like an angry spirit. His communicator crackled with static, the signal lost in the planet's dense atmosphere. The weight of isolation pressed upon him as he adjusted his environmental suit, the cooling system struggling against the oppressive heat. Despite the advanced technology at his disposal, nothing could prepare him for what happened next. A shimmer in the air caught his attention, a distortion that seemed to bend light itself. At first, he thought it might be another trick of the desert's heat waves, but then the figure emerged. She appeared as if stepping through a veil between dimensions, her presence both ethereal and commanding. The alien queen stood before him, her form defying everything he understood about extraterrestrial life. Her skin glowed with an inner luminescence, shifting through iridescent hues that seemed to respond to her emotions. Her eyes, large and multifaceted, reflected the twin suns in a kaleidoscope of colors, while her hair, or what he assumed was hair, floated around her head like living strands of starlight. Most striking were her wings, translucent and impossibly delicate, folding gracefully behind her back as she moved with fluid elegance across the sand. Marcus instinctively raised his weapon, but something in her demeanor stayed his hand. There was no threat in her approach, only an aura of ancient wisdom and profound sadness. She wore intricate armor that seemed grown rather than forged, pulsing gently with bioluminescent patterns that told stories older than human civilization. Around her neck hung a pendant containing what appeared to be a miniature galaxy, swirling and sparkling with contained cosmic energy. The air between them seemed to vibrate with anticipation as she stopped several paces away. Her gaze pierced through him, not with hostility, but with an intensity that made his breath catch in his throat. Every instinct screamed at him to maintain distance, to keep his weapon ready, yet something deeper, a primal recognition, rooted him to the spot. The beautiful alien queen tilted her head, studying him with an expression that seemed to hold both curiosity and sorrow. Without warning, she moved forward, closing the distance between them with deliberate steps. Marcus tensed, every muscle in his body preparing for either fight or flight. But instead of attacking or threatening, the queen did something that shattered all his expectations and training. She dropped to one knee in the sand, lowering her radiant form before him in a gesture of unmistakable submission. Time seemed to freeze as Marcus stared at the impossible scene unfolding before him. His mind raced through every protocol, every training scenario, but none of them covered this: how to respond when an alien queen, clearly of superior technological advancement, knelt before you in apparent reverence. The weight of her action pressed down on him, heavier than any gravity he'd experienced in space travel. "Stand up," he managed to say, his voice cracking despite his attempt to sound authoritative. This isn't necessary." But she remained kneeling, her luminous eyes fixed on him with an intensity that made his chest tighten. Her wings trembled slightly, catching the light of the setting suns in a way that created rainbows across the desert floor. Confusion warred with compassion within him as he took an involuntary step forward. The movement caused her to bow her head lower, almost touching the sand with her forehead. He noticed now the subtle trembling in her shoulders, whether from emotion or some other cause he couldn't determine. The pendant at her throat pulsed brighter, casting dancing lights across her face and illuminating tears that traced glowing paths down her cheeks. Every fiber of his military training screamed at him to maintain distance, to keep his weapon ready, but his humanity rebelled against treating this magnificent being as a threat. Instead, he found himself holstering his weapon, though his fingers hovered near it, ready to draw at any sign of aggression. The air between them seemed charged with meaning, as if they stood at the precipice of something monumental, something that transcended their individual existences. He reached out tentatively, his gloved hand hovering inches above her shoulder. "Please," he whispered, more to himself than to her, "this isn't right." Yet even as he spoke, he couldn't deny the strange connection forming between them, a bond that felt simultaneously foreign and deeply familiar, as if their meeting had been written in the stars long before either of them existed. The queen finally moved, rising slowly to her full height with a grace that belied her apparent emotional turmoil. Her wings spread wide, creating a shimmering backdrop against the darkening sky as she extended one delicate hand toward Marcus. In that moment, memories flooded his mind, not his own, but hers. He saw civilizations rising and falling, witnessed the birth and death of stars, felt the weight of countless decisions that had shaped her people's destiny. Through these shared visions, he began to understand fragments of her story. She was Elira, last of the Star Weavers, guardians of balance across galaxies. Her people had watched over cosmic harmony for millennia, until their numbers dwindled and their power waned. The pendant at her throat wasn't just jewelry, it was the heart of eternity, containing the collective consciousness of her entire species. And somehow, impossibly, it recognized him as something significant. Marcus staggered under the weight of these revelations, his knees threatening to buckle as more images poured into his mind. He saw Earth from space, its blue-green sphere vibrant against the void. He witnessed moments of human history, the first steps on the moon, the discovery of fire, the dawn of language, all viewed through eyes that weren't entirely his own. Each memory carried with it an overwhelming sense of familiarity, as if he'd lived through these moments alongside her kind. The most shocking revelation came when he saw himself through her eyes, not as a mere human soldier, but as something far more. In her vision, he stood surrounded by light, his form radiating an energy that resonated with the very fabric of the universe. She saw him as a bridge, a missing piece in some grand cosmic puzzle that had eluded her people for eons. The realization hit him like a physical force. She hadn't knelt before him out of fear or defeat, but out of recognition and hope. Their shared consciousness revealed more intimate details, her centuries-long search for a solution to her people's decline, the burden of carrying their legacy alone, and the desperation that had driven her to this moment. Through their connection, Marcus felt the depth of her loneliness, the crushing responsibility of being the last of her kind, and the fragile thread of faith that had led her to believe he might be the answer to everything. As their mental link deepened, Marcus felt something shift within him. It started as a gentle warmth in his chest, spreading outward like sunlight breaking through clouds. The sensation wasn't entirely unfamiliar. It reminded him of moments in his childhood when he'd gazed at the stars, feeling connected to something vast and unknowable. But this was different, more intense, as if his very cells were remembering something long forgotten. The Queen, Elira, watched him with growing wonder as the change manifested physically. His skin began to emit a soft glow, similar to hers but tinged with human warmth. Patterns formed across his arms, reminiscent of constellations, tracing paths that seemed to align with the bioluminescent designs on her armor. These markings pulsed in rhythm with his heartbeat, creating a visual symphony that danced between them. Emotionally, the transformation was even more profound. Memories of his past, his training, his family, his fears, all seemed to recede into a larger context. He still remembered them, but they no longer defined him. Instead, he felt an expanding awareness of the universe's interconnectedness, understanding intuitively how every action rippled through existence. This new perspective brought both exhilaration and terror, as if he'd been given the keys to infinite knowledge but lacked the wisdom to use them responsibly. Elira reached out again, this time making contact with his glowing hand. The moment their skin touched, a surge of energy passed between them, causing both to gasp. Through their connection, Marcus perceived that this reaction wasn't just physical. It was genetic, cellular, fundamental. Something ancient within him, dormant for generations, had awakened at her touch. Their DNA, though vastly different, resonated with complementary frequencies, suggesting a shared origin story that predated recorded history. The implications crashed over him like a tidal wave. Humanity's place in the cosmos suddenly seemed both smaller and infinitely more significant. The barriers between species, between worlds, between dimensions, they all felt artificial now, constructs of limited perception rather than actual separation. As these realizations washed over him, Marcus understood why Elira had knelt before him. She hadn't found just a potential ally, she discovered a living testament to the unity she'd spent centuries seeking. The connection between them grew stronger, weaving threads of understanding that transcended language and culture. Through their shared consciousness, Marcus grasped the enormity of what Elira's people had sacrificed to maintain cosmic balance. He saw civilizations saved from self-destruction, planets nudged from collision courses, and entire species guided through evolutionary bottlenecks, all without ever revealing their presence. The weight of this responsibility had broken lesser beings, but Elira's kind had shouldered it for millennia, believing their silent vigilance was worth the cost. Yet their methods had changed over time. Where once they acted directly, they later learned to influence events through subtle manipulation of probability fields. They became masters of suggestion rather than intervention, guiding rather than controlling. This evolution in approach had preserved free will while still maintaining the delicate equilibrium of existence. Now, through their connection, Marcus understood why direct contact had become so rare. Every interaction risked creating ripples that could destabilize carefully maintained balances. Alira's thoughts intertwined with his own, showing him how humanity's emergence had complicated their work. Unlike other species, humans possessed an unpredictable combination of creativity and destructiveness that defied conventional management. Attempts to guide human development had often resulted in unintended consequences, forcing the Starweavers to adopt an increasingly hands-off approach. Yet throughout human history, there had always been individuals who seemed attuned to their influence. Visionaries, artists, scientists who pushed boundaries in ways that aligned with cosmic harmony. These chosen ones had never fully understood their role, operating instead on instinct and inspiration. Marcus now realized he was one of them, though perhaps more profoundly connected than any before him. Through their bond, he perceived how human emotions, love, grief, joy, and despair, created unique resonance patterns that affected the very fabric of reality. Alira's people had long studied these patterns, learning to harmonize with them rather than suppress them. The revelation that struck deepest was the understanding that cosmic balance wasn't about maintaining stasis, it was about fostering growth through controlled chaos. Every species contributed its own melody to the universal symphony, and humanity's discordant notes were as vital as any others. The challenge lay in preventing those notes from becoming deafening, in helping humanity channel its boundless potential without destroying itself or others. As their connection deepened, Marcus felt the truth of Alira's position crystallizing within him. She wasn't just the last of her kind, she was the culmination of their work, carrying within her the distilled essence of their purpose. Her people had known their time was ending, had prepared her for this moment when she would need to pass the torch. The heart of eternity around her neck wasn't just a repository of knowledge, it was a key, waiting for the right lock to appear. And that lock, incredibly, was him. Through their shared consciousness, Marcus understood that his transformation wasn't random or accidental. His genetic makeup, his life experiences, even his military training, all had been leading to this convergence. The Starweavers had seen something in humanity's future that required this union, this merging of their ancient wisdom with human adaptability and resilience. The implications were staggering. Alira's kneeling hadn't been an act of submission but of initiation. She was offering him not just her knowledge but her destiny, trusting him to carry forward the work of maintaining cosmic balance. The weight of this responsibility settled upon him like a mantle, heavier than any armor he'd ever worn. Through their bond, he felt her hopes and fears intertwining with his own, creating a tapestry of shared purpose that transcended individual identity. Their connection continued to evolve, revealing layers of complexity that defied simple explanation. Marcus discovered that Alira's people hadn't merely observed humanity, they had subtly influenced its development through carefully orchestrated encounters. Ancient myths of divine intervention, unexplained technological leaps, and mysterious disappearances of brilliant minds all bore the fingerprints of Starweaver guidance. Yet these interventions had always been indirect, respecting human autonomy while nudging events toward greater harmony. Through their shared consciousness, Marcus relived pivotal moments in human history through Alira's perspective. He witnessed the careful planting of seeds that would grow into major scientific breakthroughs, the quiet encouragement of artistic movements that expanded human empathy, and the subtle prevention of catastrophes that could have set back civilization for centuries. Each action had been calculated to maximize positive outcomes while minimizing direct interference, walking the fine line between guidance and control. The most profound revelation came when he understood the true nature of the heart of eternity. The pendant wasn't just a storage device for collective consciousness, it was a living entity, capable of independent thought and action. Through their bond, Marcus felt its awareness reaching out to him, assessing his suitability to share in its burden. The artifact pulsed with increasing intensity, responding to his presence in ways that suggested it had been waiting for someone exactly like him. Alira's thoughts merged with his own, explaining how the heart operated on principles beyond conventional physics. It didn't just contain knowledge, it generated it, drawing from the quantum field of possibilities to create solutions to problems before they manifested. This ability had allowed her people to stay one step ahead of cosmic threats, but it came at a terrible cost. Each generation of Star Weavers had sacrificed part of their essence to maintain the heart's functionality, gradually diminishing their numbers until only a Lyra remained. Now, through their connection, Marcus understood that the heart had detected something unique in his genetic makeup, something that resonated perfectly with its operational frequency. This wasn't coincidence. It was destiny written in the very fabric of reality. His presence here, at this moment, represented the culmination of countless generations' work, both human and Star Weaver alike. The realization triggered another wave of transformation within him. His consciousness expanded further, allowing him to perceive multiple timelines simultaneously. He saw possible futures where humanity thrived, where it faltered, and where it destroyed itself. Each path radiated with potential, waiting to be influenced by the choices he would soon have to make. The burden of this foresight weighed heavily on him, but through their bond, Lyra shared her strength, reminding him that he wouldn't face these decisions alone. As night fell over the desert planet, the twin moons cast silver light across the sands, creating an ethereal backdrop for their evolving connection. Marcus and Lyra stood facing each other, their forms illuminated by the combined glow of their transformed bodies and the celestial display above. The air between them seemed alive with possibility, charged with the weight of decisions that would shape countless futures. Through their shared consciousness, they explored the immediate challenges ahead. The energy readings that had brought Marcus to Xylos 7 weren't natural phenomena. They were distress signals from ancient Star Weaver technology buried beneath the surface. These artifacts, left behind as fail-safes during humanity's early development, had begun to destabilize, threatening to unravel the careful balance Lyra's people had maintained for millennia. Their activation had drawn both of them to this precise location at this exact moment, guided by forces neither fully understood. The implications of this convergence stretched far beyond their personal connection. Marcus felt the weight of countless eyes watching through Lyra's memories, other cosmic entities, ancient beings, and fledgling civilizations all invested in humanity's potential. Each had played their part in shaping the current moment, contributing threads to the tapestry of existence that now demanded resolution. Through their bond, he understood that their union wasn't just about preserving balance, it was about evolution, about taking the next step in cosmic consciousness. Lyra's thoughts intertwined with his own, revealing that their connection had already begun affecting reality. The patterns glowing across his skin weren't just decorative, they represented quantum-level changes in his very being, adapting him to carry the responsibilities of both their species. The heart of eternity pulsed in response to these changes, its internal galaxy swirling faster as it prepared for transition. Yet this process wasn't complete. They stood at a critical juncture where choice still mattered, where the future remained unwritten. The desert around them seemed to hold its breath, the usual sounds of nocturnal creatures silenced as if aware of the moment's significance. Above them, the stars rearranged themselves in patterns that echoed the markings now adorning Marcus's skin, creating a celestial mirror of their connection. Through their bond, they both understood that whatever decision they made next would ripple through existence, touching lives across galaxies and generations yet unborn. Their connection deepened further, revealing layers of complexity that defied linear understanding. Marcus perceived how every choice humanity had ever made, from the development of language to the harnessing of fire, had been influenced by subtle currents of cosmic energy. These influences hadn't been manipulations but rather opportunities for growth, presented by Lyra's people to guide humanity toward its potential without violating its autonomy. Through their shared consciousness, he witnessed how these influences had created a web of interconnected destinies, linking seemingly unrelated events across time and space. The invention of the wheel in one era resonated with the discovery of quantum mechanics in another. Artistic movements in Renaissance Europe harmonized with philosophical breakthroughs in ancient China. Each advancement created ripples that affected the development of others, forming a complex symphony of progress that Lyra's people had carefully nurtured. The most profound revelation came when Marcus understood the true nature of free will within this framework. Human choices hadn't been predetermined or constrained. Rather, they'd been amplified by cosmic resonance. When individuals made decisions aligned with their deepest truths, these actions created harmonics that strengthened the universal balance. Conversely, choices made from fear or greed generated dissonance that threatened stability. Lyra's people had worked to minimize these destructive vibrations while amplifying constructive ones, creating conditions where humanity could flourish without compromising cosmic harmony. Through their bond, Marcus grasped how this understanding applied to their current situation. Their connection wasn't just about combining human and Star Weaver abilities, it was about synthesizing two approaches to existence. Humanity's capacity for rapid adaptation and innovation complemented the Star Weaver's mastery of long-term planning and cosmic awareness. Together, they represented a new paradigm for maintaining balance, one that embraced both immediate action and eternal perspective. The desert winds began to stir, carrying with them not just sand but fragments of memory and possibility. Through their enhanced perception, Marcus and Elira saw these particles as they truly were, shards of potential futures, each representing different paths their union could take. Some showed humanity embracing its cosmic role, flourishing among the stars while maintaining harmony with other species. Others depicted darker scenarios where their connection was misunderstood or misused, leading to conflict and chaos. Each particle carried emotional weight, resonating with the hopes and fears of countless beings who would be affected by their decisions. Through their bond, they felt the anxiety of ancient civilizations watching to see if humanity was ready for this responsibility, the cautious optimism of younger species hoping for positive change, and the desperate longing of Elira's extinct kin for their legacy to endure. These emotions swirled around them, creating a maelstrom of collective consciousness that demanded resolution. The heart of eternity reacted to this influx of possibility, its internal galaxy spinning faster as it processed potential outcomes. Marcus felt its calculations merging with his own thoughts, presenting scenarios that balanced immediate needs with long-term consequences. Through their connection, he understood that their next actions would set in motion events that couldn't be undone, choices that would define humanity's place in the cosmos for generations to come. Elira's presence beside him shifted, her form becoming both more solid and more ethereal. Through their bond, he perceived that she was preparing herself for transformation, willing to sacrifice what remained of her individuality to ensure the success of their union. Her wings folded inward, creating a cocoon of light that pulsed in time with his heartbeat. The patterns on her armor began to dissolve, flowing toward him like liquid starlight, seeking integration with the markings now permanently etched into his skin. The ground beneath them trembled slightly, not from seismic activity but from the convergence of cosmic energies responding to their connection. Sand particles lifted into the air, arranging themselves into complex geometric patterns that mirrored the constellations visible in the night sky. Through their shared consciousness, Marcus understood that these formations represented the alignment of probabilities, the universe itself acknowledging the significance of this moment and preparing to accommodate the changes their union would bring. Their hearts beat in perfect synchronization, each pulse sending waves of transformation through the surrounding environment. Plants that had lain dormant for centuries suddenly sprouted from the desert sands, their bioluminescent blooms casting additional light across the landscape. The twin moons above shifted position, aligning themselves in a configuration that hadn't occurred in recorded history, creating gravitational harmonics that resonated with their combined energy signatures. Through their bond, Marcus felt the approach of something vast and ancient, a presence that had been waiting in the cosmic background, observing their progress. This entity wasn't hostile, but its attention carried the weight of eternity, demanding answers to questions older than galaxies. The heart of eternity responded to its approach, its glow intensifying until it rivaled the light of the twin suns. Elira's hand found his, their fingers interlacing in a grip that transcended physical contact, becoming a conduit for the transfer of knowledge and responsibility that would soon be complete. The air between them thickened with anticipation, charged with the potential of creation and destruction equally balanced. Through their connection, they both understood that the next few moments would determine not just their fates, but the trajectory of cosmic evolution itself. The patterns on Marcus's skin began to shift, rearranging themselves into new configurations that incorporated elements of Elira's essence while retaining their uniquely human characteristics. These markings pulsed with increasing intensity, creating a feedback loop with the heart of eternity that threatened to overwhelm their senses. Elira's form began to dissolve at the edges, her physical presence transforming into pure energy that sought integration with his being. Through their bond, Marcus felt her memories, her experiences, her very soul merging with his consciousness. The weight of centuries compressed into seconds as he absorbed the collective wisdom of the Star Weavers, their triumphs and failures becoming part of his own narrative. The desert around them responded to this fusion, the ground cracking open to reveal ancient technology buried beneath the sands, artifacts left by Elira's people, now awakening in response to their union. The heart of eternity floated upward, suspended between them as if deciding which vessel to choose. Its internal galaxy spun faster, stars colliding and reforming in patterns that mirrored the transformation occurring within Marcus. Through their connection, he understood that this moment represented a fundamental shift in cosmic governance, the passing of stewardship from one species to another, guided by love rather than necessity. The approaching ancient presence grew stronger, its attention focused on their merging forms with an intensity that made the very fabric of reality shiver. Sand particles arranged themselves into complex mandalas around their feet, each grain vibrating with harmonic frequencies that resonated with their combined energy signatures. The twin moons above aligned perfectly, their gravitational pull creating a temporary window in space-time that would allow their transformation to affect reality on a fundamental level. Through their bond, Marcus felt the approach of countless possibilities converging on this single point in existence, each representing a different path their union could take. The desert winds intensified, carrying with them fragments of futures yet unwritten. Through their enhanced perception, Marcus and Elira saw these possibilities manifest as tangible entities, some promising utopia, others warning of catastrophe. Each fragment carried the weight of countless lives, demanding consideration before their final transformation could be completed. The heart of eternity pulsed in response to these competing potentials, its light splitting into rainbow spectra that painted the night sky with impossible colors. Their connection deepened further, pushing beyond individual consciousness to touch the fundamental structure of reality itself. Through their bond, they perceived how their union would affect not just their immediate surroundings but the very laws governing existence. Space-time bent around them, creating temporal echoes that showed glimpses of their future selves, beings of pure energy and matter, capable of influencing reality on scales previously unimaginable. These visions carried both promise and peril, highlighting the delicate balance they would need to maintain between power and responsibility. Elira's remaining physical form began to dematerialize completely, her essence flowing into Marcus like starlight absorbed by darkness. Yet this wasn't loss, it was expansion. Through their connection, he understood that her sacrifice wasn't an end but a beginning, the creation of something new that retained the best aspects of both their species. The ancient technology beneath the sands hummed with increasing intensity, its systems coming online in response to their merging energies, ready to serve their combined will. The approaching ancient presence revealed itself as a manifestation of universal consciousness, a being composed of pure probability that observed their transformation with infinite patience. Through their bond, Marcus felt its approval, not as judgment but as recognition of their readiness to assume greater responsibility. The heart of eternity chose this moment to complete its transition, floating toward Marcus's chest and merging with his being in a burst of light that temporarily blinded even their enhanced senses. When vision returned, the landscape had transformed. The desert sands glowed with inner light, each grain containing a fragment of their combined essence. The ancient technology now formed a crystalline structure around them, its surfaces displaying patterns that represented the new order they would establish. Through their bond, Marcus and Elira, now inseparable in consciousness though distinct in purpose, felt the weight of countless eyes watching, waiting to see how they would wield their newfound power to shape the future of existence itself. The crystalline structure pulsed with life, its patterns shifting to mirror the stars above. Marcus felt Elira's voice within him, no longer separate but a part of his very soul, whispering guidance. Together, they reached out to the ancient presence, their combined will resonating across galaxies. The universe seemed to pause, holding its breath as their energy rippled through the fabric of reality. In that moment, Marcus understood their purpose, not to control, but to nurture balance and guide growth. The desert around them shimmered, transforming into a lush expanse teeming with life, a promise of what could be. Hand in hand, they stepped forward, ready to face the infinite possibilities ahead. Their union was no longer just theirs, it belonged to all who sought harmony among the stars. As the twin moons bathed them in silver light, Marcus knew this was only the beginning. Together, they would write a new chapter for both their peoples, one of unity, hope, and boundless potential.